I believe that NFTs are the biggest medium to new character creation since 1980s after school television. Ironically, given the way you asked that question, I believe one of the greatest platforms for character creation of all time is comic books.
What is up, G.I. Joel Nation? I am super excited to share with you on this episode of Comic Shop Talk an exclusive interview with the one and only Gary V. For those of you that aren't familiar, Gary V is a prolific investor and businessman, entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and is very well known within the digital collectible space, the sports card trading space. He's a very knowledgeable and great guy. We got to talk about NFTs, comic books, and the future of these technologies with our beloved hobby of comic book collecting. Before we get into the interview, I also want to give a quick language warning. Gary is known for swearing, and he did a few times while we were talking, but hopefully you're okay with that. But let's go ahead and get into the interview. So first, Gary, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. I know you're a very busy man. I'm super pumped to get to talk to you about comic books and NFTs and kind of where you see those two things colliding. Real quick, before we get into that, I just want to say thank you again because, I've been doing this for a year as of Saturday, full-time, owning a business, making content. And to think that in a year, I get to talk to a real life superhero such as yourself, absolutely mind-blowing for me. So thank you so much.
You're very nice.
I appreciate it. All right. So, Gary, just going to jump right into it. So my first question, I just want to provide you with a little bit of context around it. We're kind of seeing a rise in indie comic books, creator-owned properties, things like that. They're having a bit of a renaissance. And I just want to know where you see that kind of colliding with NFTs and smart technology and smart contract technology.
I believe that NFTs are the biggest medium to new character creation since 1980s after school television. Mm-hmm. Ironically, given the way you asked that question, I believe one of the greatest platforms for character creation of all time is comic books.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what to tell people, but like Batman was a comic book.
Yeah.
Superman was a comic book, Yeah. And so it's fun because I believe the next Batman, the next Superman, and then taking it to other formats, the next Transformers, mm-hmm. Those were cartoons made to sell toys.
Yeah.
And then we had card games, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon. That became a platform, right? Mm-hmm. I believe NFTs will create the most significant new IP that we've seen in a very long time. That Bored Ape, Cool Cats, World of Women, mm-hmm. VeVe, who knows which ones, but 15 to 25 of these properties, 50, will come out of this era and become popular culture in 20, 30 years. So how do I see it? I see it as NFTs is the greatest thing that ever happened to independent comic creators. Here's why. The likelihood of being an independent comic right now, mm-hmm. printing a book and creating Spider-Man is impossible.
Yeah.
We haven't seen it since Spawn, right?
Yeah.
And
the 90s.
Right. And I think we can agree that Spawn's unbelievable, but let there be no confusion. Spawn is not Batman, Superman.
No, Pokemon, he is not. Yeah.
And so we haven't seen it because the format's not big enough to do it. There's mm-hmm. not enough people on a data. You got to understand, and you probably know this, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, you had almost every kid reading a comic book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thus giving Spider-Man, He-Man, Shazam, Fantastic Four, X-Men a chance. Mm-hmm. Today, that happens in video games. Fortnite can become Spider-Man if Super Mario, for example, is much bigger than Spawn.
Yeah, definitely.
So the medium, Joel, matters. Mm-hmm. The medium of just a comic book isn't big enough anymore to create that big of a character. I believe that NFTs will be a big enough medium and a lucrative enough medium. For example, with VeVe, I've done so well financially with VeVe because NFTs are lucrative, mm-hmm. that I'm now going to use that money to buy an animation studio. I've made a kids book deal. I just have to sign the deal. I haven't announced it yet. There's a little scoop for you. Toys, all that stuff. So like this Thundercats here or this Mutants here, like it's all coming. And I think if you're an independent comic book person, I think you launch an NFT first mm-hmm. and then make the book.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely see a rise in that, and a lot of creators leaving the big publishers to go to the smaller indie publishers to go start a Substack,
That's
things
right.
like that. So
That's right.
it's definitely a lot of traction in that area. Well, thanks. That's great input. If you ever decide to do a V Friends comic book, I hope you give me a call. I would love to be
I'd love you.
love
I'd
to
love
give
to
some
talk to you
input.
about it.
But
Thank you.
so my next question is, gold is used as an index for Bitcoin by a lot of investment firms. Do you think we could use that same kind of logic when it comes to comic books, right? Say like Marvel Comics #1 was the first Marvel Comics NFT. It sold in 2019 for just over $1 million. One just sold in 2017 for almost $250,000. Do you think that same logic can be applied to NFTs?
I think collectibles
Mm-hmm.
by nature don't tend to be part of a standard because there's different levels of volume and limitations within,
Mm-hmm.
right? They by nature, Black Panther.
Yeah.
Black Panther's first appearance and Black Panther #1 is different because of popular culture, because of a movie, not because of the price of X-Men 1.
Mm-hmm. I guess.
So there's you see where I'm going? There's too many
Yeah.
nuances of demand
Mm-hmm.
that I think play a little bit different, but I don't think it's far-fetched to say like if Detective or Amazing Stories or right, if those are foundational, like if Amazing Stories goes to 25 million,
Yeah.
does that have an effect on Punisher's first appearance? It does, because if Amazing is 1 million, well then Punisher's first appearance is X.
Yeah.
If Amazing is 50 million, well then Punisher or Wolverine's first appearance in Hulk becomes Y.
Yeah.
So I do think it plays you see where I'm going?
As the market rises, everything kind of goes
or
along with it.
declines.
Or declines. Yes, exactly. Okay, well, that makes sense.
And then the variable becomes appreciation. Yes, that stays that way until there's a Black Panther movie that goes. I mean, Doctor Strange did not hit the way Black Panther hit.
Yeah, definitely.
But had it, I assume Doctor Strange's first appearance would be 4x what it is right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. We saw that with Black Panther. We see that with Shang-Chi. The ones that tend to hit harder tend to do better in the long run.
It's just supply and demand.
Supply and demand. Yeah, even with the new Moon Knight trailer, there's been a couple comics that have spiked because of that. That was just yesterday or on Monday. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Great input there. And then so next would be, what should, when collectors and investors are looking at comic book projects on NFT land, what should they be looking at? What kind of things should they be asking? And then, specifically the big name right now in the comic book NFT space is VeVe Digital Collectibles. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that platform.
Of course.
If you can just share your thoughts on that platform and what collectors should be looking for, things like that.
That platform, I think, I don't know if, again, I don't like talking about things that I don't know. I believe that they're in deeper talks with Immutable, or maybe have already done that deal. Do you know that?
They're in progress. Yeah, they've been tweeting about it here and there.
I believe that if that fully goes, and now it's a layer 2 of Ethereum, because blockchains matter. Yeah. And I think if that hits, if that locks in, and you can really take it from layer 2 to layer 1, I think it really matters. Obviously, I see all the red circles in my social. I only have so many hours in a day, and I think I was waiting to see if they were going to do a blockchain kind of execution more than digital asset execution. I think they're barking up a very good tree with Immutable. And I think that marketplace gets a big lift if they if they get that partnership.
Yeah.
And for example, for me, and by the way, who the fuck am I? Like, I'm just, I'm aware that people follow me and all this, but like, I'm just one guy. For me personally, subjectively, man of one.
Yeah.
That deal makes me go and actually now allocate the 50 hours of homework on VeVe, versus not, because I need that blockchain layer 2. Like, I'm a big ETH guy. Solana, if VeVe did Solana, I would also do that, right? Like, I need to have some momentum for the blockchain itself to really go there. And so I'm excited about that, and am aware enough to know those companies are flirting. And if they consummate, I think that's going to allow me to focus more. And then the question becomes, which digital rights did VeVe get? What is Marvel and DC and others up to? What are they going to do next? Look at trading cards. Yeah. Sometimes the NFL is making Topps, then it's Upper Deck, then it's Panini. Yeah. The other thing that is going to be interesting to watch is which rights did VeVe get? Like NBA Top Shot on a Flow blockchain only have the highlights rights. what did Marvel and DC hold back, if anything? I don't know that. That's the homework I want to do when I go all in. But I'm very optimistic, and I'm a big fan of like all I cheer for Flow and Dapper, Polka Dot this and Cardano that. Like, I'm a champion and a cheerer. I'm just one human being that can only spend so much energy on so many things.
Yeah.
I bought Ethereum in 16. I've been closer to it. I understood it more. I feel more comfortable, but I'm excited about other layer twos. I'm excited about different chains. I can't wait to watch this all evolve.
No, I gotcha. So would you say for like a collector getting into it, should they focus more? You kind of mentioned the blockchain technology. Should they focus on learning about the technology and like how that could be applied to the assets, or should they, kind of follow their gut? I know comic books. I don't know technology as well, so I'm following. I know this comic book character is popular. Which would you say is kind of?
I think they matter because I think both matter.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you understand Ethereum or Cardano or Immutable or Magic, like if you don't understand what people are going to want, you're dead.
Yeah.
At the same token, for me with VeVe, and other digital infrastructures, getting that business development deal with the right blockchains fucking matters.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, that's all great information, Gary. I know we only had a couple of minutes to talk, so I don't want to take up too much.
I wanted to get in with you because I promised you I would, and I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad you remembered. That really means a lot to me. And I just have kind of one last kind of fun question for you. Who is your favorite comic book character? It could be a superhero, non-superhero, team.
It's Batman. Batman. I'll tell you why. I learned how to speak English by watching the old 60s Batman.
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo, Price is Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Batman were the shows I watched, and a little bit of Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, with Bill Bixby. Yeah,
but Batman is my number one.
That's awesome. Funny,
and
connection there.
And the '89 Batman film came out.
Mm-hmm.
In the '80s, there was the Superman movies in the early '80s.
Yeah,
and they were big, but '89 Batman really is what I would say the precursor to what we're living today.
Definitely.
It hit so big culturally.
That's awesome.
That it put everybody on notice that superhero movies were a real thing.
No, definitely. That's what you mentioned learning English from Batman. My family is immigrant family as well. My uncles and some of my cousins learned to speak English by reading X-Men comic books. So it helps with people getting to learn it. But thank you so much, Gary, for your time.
Love you, brother. Talk to you soon.
Blessed day. You have a great one.
Take care. Bye-bye.